Hey, what's up everybody? Friday, July 26th. We got the advance estimate for second quarter US GDP today. It came out at 2.1%. Now that was a little slower than what we saw in the first quarter. However, I have to say that was a pretty good result because most economists, including the Atlanta Fed, which puts out its GDP Now forecast, had it at 1.3%, and I think the median of most of the forecast was about 1.7, 1.8%. So 2.1%. We had a very big increase in personal consumption expenditures. That was up the most in 2 years. So people spending money. And we had the biggest increase in federal government spending in the quarter that we have seen in 10 years. So without that, if you had not had that big increase, because we had a large negative, a large subtraction as a result of the trade deficit, net exports were significantly more negative than the first quarter. So that was a subtraction. But that was offset by very strong personal consumption and very strong government consumption expenditures and gross investment. Now, I want to say two things about that. Number one, the rising tide of expenditures for stuff like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. You see what's happening here. This is flowing to the income of the non-government, of households, and they are spending it. They are spending it, not saving it. And this is very, very important, and it has been my premise for a long time, how these, they're called entitlements. I don't call them entitlements, but let's just, for the sake of brevity, having a word, a term, these entitlements are growing and will continue to grow now for the next 10 years probably, at least for the next 5 years, because you have all the baby boomer generation, they're retiring. The roles of recipients for these programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're growing exponentially. So that is a stealth fiscal expansion that is ongoing. Now, you never hear anyone talk about that, or if they do talk about it, they're like, oh my God, Social Security, it's going broke. How are we gonna? They talk about it in a negative sense. And I've said many times, while this does not guarantee against a recession, I mean, something could happen externally or whatever, but it is a powerful, powerful anti-recession, development, for lack of a better term, anti-recession fundamental. Okay, so that's going on, and that's just going to continue to go on. I love it because nobody talks about this. I'm the only one who talks about this, but again, I'm the only one who talks about all these things that are very, very important. Number two, remember the other day I made that video about Stanley Druckenheimer, Stanley Druckenmiller, the big hedge fund guy who was like beside himself. Oh, look at that budget they just passed. The new budget, I'm talking about that 2-year deal that raises spending by $325 billion and suspends the debt ceiling. He was going nuts about that. This big, hedge fund guy, famous in the hedge fund world, running billions, whatever. He was going crazy about that. But as you can see, and I did the video the other day, and I explained how government spending is an important component. There's 4 ingredients that make up GDP: personal consumption, business investment, net exports, and government spending, right? And I said, if you don't understand that, then you fundamentally you do not have a grasp of what goes into GDP, and you will get the government aspect, the government's participation, you will lack the understanding of that, and you will get it wrong. You will view that as a negative. But there it was clearly in this GDP report. And by the way, let me just, as an aside here, I'll just say that 2.1%, that was not bad at all, given the fact that we had the debt ceiling in effect, which was putting a major constraint on bank credit growth, bank lending, all right? We had all the trade war threats and tariffs, Trump attacking Mexico or threatening Mexico, increased tariffs on China. That, you know, chilled the sentiment. It created a lot of worry and caution out there, all right? There were a lot of negative things in the quarter which created a significant amount of drag on the economy. Like, that's why all these economists were coming out with, you know, the 1.3% growth. They saw all these negative externalities thrown at the economy. Plus you had some leftover from the government shutdown in the first quarter. All right, so you had a lot of things in there that created drag for the economy, but we still came in at 2.1%. That's why I'm saying that was a good number given everything that was thrown at the economy. But getting back to my point, we had the largest increase in federal government spending in the quarter in 10 years. You have to go back to the second quarter of 2009. Now there it is. You want to increase GDP. I mean, imagine if they did a big infrastructure deal, and if they did health care for all, and if they did you know, spending for the environment and basic science and research and education. I mean, you'd have 10% GDP growth, 6.5% easy. You'd match China easy. But in this, I don't know. They just every time it is talked about, it is looked at as if it is a negative, except when it comes to defense and war spending. There is never a question about that. Nobody ever questions that. Nobody ever says how we're going to pay for it. Nobody ever says where's the money going to come from. That's automatic. These tens of billions, mega billion, trillion increases in military and war, that's always automatic. The money is always there for that stuff. So that was a very good quarter. All right, now we're going to get the debt ceiling lifted. It will factor into much better growth rates when it comes to bank credit, loans and leases, that sort of thing. So all very positive. All very positive. But again, I go back to these so-called very smart people on Wall Street who really have no clue, no comprehension. As a matter of fact, they have it completely backwards. Completely backwards. And they are so arrogant. I can tell you two things. Number one, Druckenheimer is never looking at that number. And it's all out there. You go to BEA.gov, that's the Bureau of Economic Analysis.gov, and you got the table right there. It's all free. You don't have to pay for anything. Like I told you the other day with Understanding the Daily Treasury Statement. It's all free. It's all out there. But his arrogance, and the arrogance of all of them, he would never go there. And if you tried to explain that to him, if I tried to explain that to him, if anyone of you who understood this, having learned it from me, if you tried to explain this to him, he would dismiss you out of hand. I guarantee that. He wouldn't even give you the time of day. He wouldn't even look at you. He would walk away. He would dismiss you out of hand. And that's why I said his losses, and by the way, they're all having losses this year. They're taking terrible hits. I just saw a thing, Ray Dalio, taking a huge hit this year. They don't want to understand. They want to live in the paradigm that exists in their minds. By the way, if you think this just came naturally to me, no, I used to be one of them a long time ago. And then I learned, and I have an open mind, and I listened, and at first it seemed contrary to everything that I ever was taught when it came to economics, but upon reflection, and deeper reflection, and really thinking about it, I saw the light, I saw the truth. Same thing, all of you could have that same epiphany, if you wanted to. Anyway, I get emails every day. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Your service is amazing. Your service is fantastic. Changed absolutely my results, my life. All right, so that concludes that. Market flirting with new, well, we made a new all-time high in the NASDAQ intraday. The S&P, see what happens with the Dow. Looking very, very bullish, friends. Things coming up next week, the Fed rate cut. Then early August, something else. If you want to find out, go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial of MMT Trader. Bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye.